In tennis, you have Djokovic, you have Serena Williams. In soccer, you have your two prevalent guys that are constantly winning all the time. In American football, you have Tom Brady, who won all the different championships. Mm-hmm. The one thing I will say about all those individuals, they all had the same mentality. If you were to put them all in the same room and make it as dark as possible and have somebody who has as tech savvy as this individual here and make their voices sound exactly the same. If you ask them this question, they all would tell you the same answer.
Γεια σας. Είμαστε εδώ σε μια πολύ σημαντική μέρα και για το κανάλι μας, το Μπεταράδος YouTube channel και για το Pick and Popa. Είμαστε εδώ με έναν πάρα πολύ σημαντικό άνθρωπο στο πώς έχουν εξελιχθεί τα πράγματα στο άθλημα που αγαπάμε, τον μπάσκετ, αλλά και γενικά στον αθλητισμό. Ένας άνθρωπος ο οποίος έχει επηρεάσει πάρα πολύ σπουδαίες μορφές και είναι και ίδιος μια πάρα πολύ σημαντική μορφή στο χώρο του αθλητισμού. Είναι στη χώρα μας ο Τιμ Γκροβερ. Hello coach, happy to have you here.
Awesome to be here. Thank you very well.
Ο Τιμ Γκροβερ βρίσκεται στη χώρα μας με αφορμή μια παρουσία του, μια ομιλία του. Τη μέρα που βλέπετε το βίντεο, την ώρα που βλέπετε το βίντεο, αυτή η ομιλία θα έχει γίνει, αλλά θα έχετε ενημερωθεί εγκαίρως, και να το ξέρετε αυτό, από τα social media των Μπεταράδων για να είστε εκεί. Οπότε, so, let me start with your beginnings. You guys come from India, right?
Yeah.
You were born in London.
Oh, yes, very good. You've done your homework.
Yeah.
All right.
but I can say that you are raised a Chicago guy, and you are a Chicago guy.
Oh,
right?
yes.
So take me back to the start of the journey. How did you decided what your dreams were when you were a kid? How you decided to be in this profession, in this arena?
Well, like every kid that's out there, you want to be a professional athlete. I wanted to be a professional. I wanted to be a professional basketball player. I practiced. I did everything I was supposed to do. I was fortunate enough to play.
You played in Illinois.
I played at the collegiate level, but I got to the point where I just realized I wasn't good enough. Mm-hmm. And a lot of individuals, it takes them a long time to realize that they're good but not good enough. And back then, we're talking about the 80s. Mm-hmm. Playing basketball overseas was not as prevalent as it is now.
Yeah, there was some separate guys in Italy. Not here, foreigners weren't allowed.
It's time to focus in on something else. And while I was playing ball at college, I was studying kinesiology.
Yeah,
kinesiology and exercise science. I had some injuries that I had to overcome, but that wasn't the reason I didn't make it to the professional level. I know a lot of people say, "Oh, if I hurt my knee, I hurt my back." Yeah, they like to make excuses. I was not good enough. I was not good enough because when I got injured and so forth, the training and the rehabilitation that I got, I felt wasn't up to par.
Yeah,
and I started to study it more, and I started to do my own things and so forth. I said, well, if I can't be good enough to play, I want to make sure help other individuals stay healthy, become better skilled, be able to jump higher, run faster, move. And that's how I kind of said, all right, this is what I'm going to do. And I told myself, I'm going to train professional athletes.
But staying on the field, I mean, you fell in love with basketball. Basketball was one of your loves, right?
It was. We're growing up in the States back in that time. You played 3 sports. You played American football, you played baseball, you played basketball. Well, basketball is the only sport you can play by yourself. All you need is a court and a ball. That's it. Football, you can't throw the ball and catch it to yourself. You can throw it up in the air and catch it down, but it's not the same. Yeah. Same thing with baseball. You throw the ball in the air, you hit it, you got to go get the ball, you got to get it. So it's the only sport that you could actually play by yourself. So I was kind of drawn to that sport for that reason. Mm-hmm.
So I want to fast forward to the thing that is one of the highlights for every professional in their career, working with some of the greats, right? Mm-hmm. So you're in Chicago. You're starting to work in Chicago.
Yeah.
And there's this moment that you're crossing paths with MJ.
Yeah.
Take me back to that. Take me back to that story. I know there is an interesting story behind that. But I know I want our audience to learn about it.
I graduated from college with my master's degree in exercise science, and had to find a job. So I took a job in a local health club as a trainer, but they didn't allow me to train. I was just kind of working the fitness room, and I did that for many years. And eventually, they allowed me to train. And back then, we had things called newspapers for the younger audience. You know how you get your information now on a phone? We used to get it in paper. Yeah. And
your hands were getting dirty and stuff like that.
Yes. So people who would exercise when they would ride the bike or do things, they would bring newspapers in to read, and then when they get done, they would just leave them there for somebody else to read. So when I had a little break, I would grab the newspaper, and I saw a little article in the paper that said Michael Jordan was tired of taking the physical abuse from the Detroit Pistons and was looking to get stronger.
89, 80.
It was
late 80s.
Yeah, it was either 88 or 89 because I started with him in 89. And I said, okay. I said, So
he was already a phenom. He was MVP, defensive player of the year. Yeah.
He was already having a fantastic career. You know, putting up unbelievable numbers, scoring champ, like you said, offense, defense, doing all the first team, all NBA, all star. The accolades were all there. But to Michael, none of those mattered. The only thing that mattered was the championship and the ring. That's all that mattered to him. So every year when he didn't get there, he was like, I need to figure out how to get there. And in his mind, it was like, I need to get stronger. I need to get stronger. I need to be able to get more physical. So what I did back then, you know, no emails, no texting. Well, you're not going to pick up the phone and just call Michael Jordan. So I literally hand wrote 14 letters. There's 15 individuals on a basketball team back then. And I wrote 14 letters to all the other players on the team except Michael Jordan. So back then, you write the letters, you put them in an envelope, and you send them to the practice facility. And what it does is it's considered fan mail. So they take the mail, they put it into the player's locker. It's up to the player whether they're gonna read it or not. Some read it, some don't. And one of the letters got a response. So what happened was, I did not write Michael Jordan a letter because it was like he's already the best. He's the best player, maybe the best player in the
pointless
league. Yeah, I'm like, why is he going to work with an individual that's never trained a professional athlete? But I said, if I can work with somebody else, he could see the results. Maybe he'd be interested. I learned a big lesson back then, which I'll share a little later. He saw the letter in somebody else's locker, took it out, looked at it, and gave it to the team athletic trainer and the team physician at that time, and said, "Here, find out what this kid's about. Find out what this is about." So I get a phone call, and this was on a home phone, so where they have to leave a message, you know, the answering machines and so forth. This isn't on a cell call, so you don't even know you get the message until you get home. And you know, the message was, "Hey, we have somebody that's interested that we'd like to meet with you." So I set up a meeting, and then for 3 months, their athletic trainer and team physician sat with me on a weekly basis, many times a week, and they kept asking me questions about my philosophy and if I knew what I was talking about, and physiology and anatomy and training and all this other stuff and injury prevention and so forth. It was like I went through another year of school again.
Yeah.
And so okay, they didn't tell me who the client was. They didn't know, but they wanted to make sure I just wasn't somebody that like, all right, that just flew through school, that I actually knew what I was talking about. Okay. Then 3 months passed by. This was during the summertime, and they said, hey, they gave me an address. They said the client would like to meet with you. Okay, I don't know who it is. They gave me an address. I look at the address.
You didn't assume it must be one of the 14 guys.
Yeah, I assumed it was one of the four. Yeah, I assumed
like
it was one of the 4.
Grant or
yeah, it was one. I assumed it was one of the 14 guys. I didn't know which one, but I had done my homework and research on all of them. You know, you can watch the games on TV. So that was kind of you couldn't rewind it and stop it like you could do now. But I would watch the games and I'd study the movement patterns and see things of. So I had information on every single Bulls player. So that was my homework. So they give me an address. You know, Michael and I did not live in the same neighborhood. So his neighborhood was kind of far. So I got there, I ring the doorbell. No answer. Still not knowing who it is. Ring the doorbell again. No answer. Third time, door opens. It's Michael Jordan.
Boom.
Right. Now, the interesting part of that story was also...
Have you done your homework with MJ as well?
Oh, of course. Yes. Well, it's easy to do your homework on him because every time you're watching the game, he's the one they're showing all the time on TV. So it's easy to study his patterns. And he opens the door. He opens up the door. I'm wearing Converse. Okay, I couldn't afford Nikes back then.
Okay, but
yeah,
Nike wasn't back then what MJ made them become.
Exactly, but they were still more expensive than Converse.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm like, all right, I have to make a decision. Now,
did he look at
oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah. I said,
he picked your rack up.
Do I take off the shoes or do I leave the shoes on? But remember, I'm a kid, all right? You know, I'm a kid in my 20s. And I know people can relate to this. When you did athletic, when you played sports and you did all this stuff, all your socks had holes in them, every single one. So I'm wearing,
because you play.
You play. And they're supposed to be white. After a while, they're no longer white. I said, all right, I'm gonna take the shoes off, but I know I have holes in my socks. So while I'm taking the shoes off, I'm literally with my feet trying to turn my sock around so the holes on the top are on the bottom. Well, I got holes on the tops and I got holes on the bottom. So we go inside, we sit down, and he goes, listen, I've talked to other individuals, which I didn't know at that time. I didn't realize there was other people that were involved in the process. Mm-hmm. This is what they've told me. They've all told me the same thing. You know, how they can put 20 pounds on me and make me stronger and do all these other things and so forth. What do you think about that? And I said, everyone's wrong. And he just looked at me. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, I said, everyone's incorrect. I said, let's look at your body. I said, you have a tendency to
injury,
pull a groin,
and ankles,
hamstring, and ankles. I said those are the prevalent injuries that you've had throughout your career, as minor as they may be. I said if we can make those areas stronger, if we can make your ankles stronger, if we can alleviate the groin pulls, if we can alleviate the hamstring pulls, you're already going to be stronger. Mm-hmm. You're already going to be better. You're already going to be able to move faster. You're already going to be able to do all these things. And I said, if we don't deal with those and you put on all this weight, even though the weight would be muscle, those injuries are going to get even worse.
Yeah.
Back then, he was like almost under 200 pounds. I was like, it's very difficult to put on 20 pounds of muscle right away. I said, that's just not quality muscle. I said, especially for an athlete. So I just said, how I would do it is let's take care of these injuries. And I said, each year, let's try to put on 5 pounds.
Gradually.
Every season. We'll put on 5 pounds. We'll see how you feel. And then if we can go another 5 pounds next season, we'll go another 5 pounds and we'll go another 5. Well, he goes, what weight should I play at? I said, I can't tell you that. You have to tell me that. You'll know exactly where I said, I'm at the right weight. And he just looked at me, he goes, this doesn't sound right. I said, it don't get any righter.
Yeah, he wanted a fixed answer.
Yeah, he wanted it right away. And then he thought about it for a little while and he goes, I'll give you 30 days. Mm-hmm. All right. He goes, when do we start? He goes, tomorrow. So no problem. So I leave the house, I grab my shoes. When I'm walking out the door, he looks at the shoes and he goes, never again. I got you. So the first thing I did was go home and buy a pair of Nikes, and then put the program together. And then 30 days turned into 15 years.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose that in his mind he assumed that against those Pistons, against those this kind of physicality, which by the way was allowed back then.
Yes.
The first thing in his mind was just to put some muscle on.
Yeah.
The answer is that MJ needed to get stronger just physically or even mentally.
Well, here's the thing.
To deal with those guys.
Once you get stronger physically, it changes your mental output. Instead of getting hit all the time, he could do the hitting, so he could give it back to them. So as your body starts to change, as you start to feel stronger, as you start to, work through the uncomfortableness of actually training hard and doing things that you're not accustomed to. He was accustomed to playing basketball, running, doing defensive drills, doing all the stretching, doing all that stuff. But this was something that was new to him. So when you go through something that's uncomfortable on a regular basis, it automatically changes your mentality.
Yeah.
Because I would tell him, hey, say, listen, when we're working on this is how your body's going to feel. This is what's going to be hurting. This is what's going to feel real good. This is how you're going to feel 2 days from now. And constantly progressing and being able to see that you started with these little weights here, and now you're progressing to these bigger weights. And back then, a lot of stuff that they're doing now that's, supposedly innovative and so forth, I was doing back then. I would hand him different dumbbells. The weights wouldn't always be the same. Sometimes he'd have a 15-pound dumbbell in one hand and a 30-pound dumbbell in other. We would do stuff standing on one. We'd do stuff standing on one leg. We'd do stuff sitting down. I mean, there was so many different things. I would create unstable objects. We would do stuff with different types of lighting and all kinds of stuff. And back then there was no internet, And one of the stuff was when people would ask me, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? There's no research behind this. There's no. I just said, I know it's right.
And you have this great story that back then you were a one-man tracking system. You were watching his games.
Yes.
And you were counting the steps.
Yes.
Now, right now it's a given. Any team, any player has access to this data, this tracking data.
Yeah, I said I was the original Fitbit. I said I was counting steps way back when. So what we would do is, I was fortunate and blessed enough to go to all the games, the home games, and most of the road games, and I'd sit there, I'd watch the game, and I would watch it differently than a fan. Fans are jumping around and cheering and so forth. I'm like really focused on everything that he's doing. Once the game was over, he would always be one of the last ones to leave the Chicago Stadium. That was before it was a United Center, before they built the new one.
The old one.
And when I wouldn't leave until he left. And this was, so the games back then, remember the games didn't, now the games start at 7 p.m. Back then the games started at 8:30, so they were late. So we wouldn't get out of the arena till like midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd go home. Back then there was a machine called a Betamax, where everything would get recorded on a tape. And I'd go back home and I'd rewatch the game. And people thought, oh, you're watching for the highlights, and said, no, I'm actually studying his patterns. So to me, that was my homework. That was my preparation for the next day. You have a client who's so obsessed with winning from a physical standpoint and from a mentality standpoint.
And the details.
Yes, and the details. I had to match that. I had to be just as detailed as he was, just as obsessed as he was at getting better. So I would watch the game and I'd sit down and I'd write, okay, this is how many steps he took with it, how many times he ran back and forth on the court. This is how many times he landed on his left leg. This is how many times he landed on his right leg. This is how many times he jumped off of 2 feet. Now remember, this was around 12:30 in the morning, and his workout the next day was either at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., or 7 a.m. So it would take me almost 2.5 hours to 3 hours to go through this preparation, and then I'd have to drive almost 30 miles to his house
for early morning workout.
For the early morning workout.
This was when the Breakfast Club with the Bulls was
This was
created.
Before the Breakfast Club, but then eventually the Breakfast Club started with Ron Harper and Scottie Pippen. So we were I would take all this stuff, these details, so that way the next day it was actually the same day then, when I'd see him, I would know that, okay, one side may be more fatigued than the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, if that's the case, I can't work the left side. I can't work the right side as much as I can work the left side, or I can't work the left leg So I made all these adjustments. And like I said, there was no studies to say this is the right thing to do. To me, it was just like, from an athletic standpoint, this made sense to me. You know, because the body, you're not using the body equally. So that's how I would plan his workouts. And he was very open to these things, because he would always just say, listen, I trust you. He goes, if I have to question everything you do, if I'm like, I don't know about this stuff, then I can't focus on what I need to focus in on. So I need you to pay as much attention. And I was like, and if he had a question, I had the answer for it. And if I didn't have the answer for it, I'd tell him I will find out. And I said, I won't know right away. I said, you got to give me a day or two to find out. And the reason that is, again, no internet. You actually had to go to a library. For people that don't know what a library is a place
vintage
that has
stuff from Mr. Γκροβερ.
Yes, has a lot of books. It has a lot of books. And you go in there and you check out a book and you read it and you see what the research is, and then you go back and you write it down, or you ask them to make a photocopy of the page, and you bring the information to the client, just to show him that, hey, we are on the right path. I'm not just making this stuff up. There is some, not a whole lot of science, but there is some science behind this.
Okay, so let me fast forward to this Bulls era. I wanna highlight a thing that struck my mind when I was watching The Last Dance, and I think this was a recurring theme in my mind. This team had won everything. MJ had won everything. Everyone knew in this team that there is no tomorrow. They're not coming back. How is it even possible to, after reaching that level, after all these successes, after this, it was undeniable that Bulls was the best team ever.
Sure.
What is...
this is from a man wearing a Lakers jersey.
Yeah, I said back then. Now science has progressed, history has progressed. So how did they find the hunger? How did they find the motive? How MJ find the motive at age 35 back then, 98, right?
Well, see, that's a great question. So I always put this in this kind of perspective. Imagine the first day of your job. Your first day of your job, and your boss comes down and tells you, no matter how great or how bad you do this year, you're not coming back. So let's say you're in the sales business, and you can either have your best sales year ever or have your worst sales year ever. You're not coming back, and your money is still going to be exactly the same. It's going to be the same, no matter how hard you work or how little you work. Most people will be like,
I quit.
I'm like,
what's the point?
Why am I going to do this? So this was told to them. I mean, I wasn't there. This is just from information that I was able to gather. This was literally told to them the first day of practice. And in Michael's mind, like, well, there's only one option. We're going out as champs. He put that mentality into every individual. He raised his accountability level. He made me think and do even better. He made all of his team, and you saw this in the last dance. You know, everyone talking about, oh, well, he wasn't a nice guy. Listen, these individuals that you have on the wall, all right, they're not nice guys either. They're kind individuals. There's a difference between being nice and being kind. They're very kind individuals. You know, listen, you meet Messi, you meet Giannis, you know, you meet any of these individuals. They're very kind individuals. But when it comes to competing, there's nothing nice.
They're killers.
Yeah. And it starts in practice, it holds them accountable, and so forth. So I said there's a big difference between those two terms. If even in The Last Dance, you saw how kind Michael was, where if somebody else needed some tickets, some help, he was always...
As a person.
Right. But as a competitor, you know, and basketball, and, you know, like any other sport, you need everybody playing at the highest level. You need them all playing at the highest level to go out that way. And he was the hardest player. He worked the hardest in practice. He took care of his body. He showed up early. He did his work late. He did all those things. And it wasn't like, okay, this is my last championship. This is something he did throughout his whole career.
Yeah.
And you're talking about an individual that also had the most obligations off the court.
He was a biggest brand than the Bulls, I think.
Yeah, he was the biggest brand in the league. In all sports.
Probably no sports.
You go in all these different things. Besides European soccer, football, he literally changed the industry for all professional sports in the States with the endorsements, because he was the first individual that corporations looked at from a athlete standpoint. Says, we can market this guy for our brand.
Yeah, and also in Europe, those guys that you refer, the soccer guys, they took lessons of what MJ did.
Everybody.
The sports industry here was built by things that MJ and the Dream Team in '92 in Barcelona and stuff like that did.
And everybody says, everyone knows about the famous commercial that Michael did was, be like Mike.
Be like Mike.
And I wrote this in the book. Everybody wanted to be like Mike. Michael wanted to be like nobody else.
Yeah.
He wanted to be like nobody else.
He was one of a kind.
Yeah.
When MJ finished his career, at that point, you thought that this is one of a kind. Nobody can reach how obsessed with winning that guy was.
I still don't think so. Well, here's the thing. I can't speak for clients that I don't work with.
Yeah.
I can't.
I want to go to the next client. That's
what I'm saying.
That's the bridge.
I can't. You see, and I use different sports for individuals that don't know. Obviously in tennis, you have Djokovic, you have Serena Williams, you have Federer, you have Nadal. In soccer, you have your two prevalent guys that are constantly winning all the time. In American football, you have Tom Brady, who won all the different championships. In hockey, you have all the players that have won numerous Stanley Cups. But the one thing I will say about all those individuals, they all had the same mentality. Like Lily, I always said, if you were to put them all in the same room, you put them in the same room, all right, and make it as dark as possible, and have somebody who has as tech savvy as this individual here, and make their voices sound exactly the same. You make them sound exactly the same, and you would ask them if you ask them this question, they all would tell you the same answer. And I've done interviews and I've heard interviews from these individuals, and they literally tell you, you can watch documentaries. You can watch a documentary of Derek Jeter, who won, I don't know how many World Series he's won. I think he won he won a lot. All right. The mentality and the words they speak are the same, and they all go back to his mentality, the way he played the game, the way he did things. And this was before social media. You even look at even Kόμπι Bráiαντ. When he talked about Kobe, everyone talks about, he copied everything MJ did. Well, if you're gonna copy somebody, you emulate and learn from the best. You don't learn from somebody who's on the bottom 100. You find the best of the best.
The prototype.
Yes, that's the individual. That's the individual that you study.
That's where I was going. You referred to my love for the Lakers. Oh. I couldn't leave Kobe out of this. So we worked with him 2007, right? I officially went full time with him in 2007. Yeah, I had done some work with him previously before that, but 2007 is when we started full time. I think it was. I believe that it was his prime athletically. Those years, after the three-peat, the first three-peat, he was putting insane numbers.
Yes,
but he was far away from winning a championship. Then Pau Gasol comes. And after you become a full-time partner with Kobe, there's three state finals, two championship against our biggest enemies, the Celtics. So how was that period? How was this guy? I think everyone compares him to Jordan. Not I cannot say by achievements, but the mentality, spirit, the mentality. This Mamba mentality seems like a continuation of what MJ brought to the table of the mental aspect of the game.
Yeah. So this is one thing I say about Mamba mentality. It's not a mentality, it's a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. There's a huge difference between a mentality and a lifestyle. Mentality changes from day to day. Mentality requires motivation. And some days you're motivated, your mentality is going to be different. All right, other days that you're not motivated, your mentality is going to also be different. But when it's a lifestyle, it's no longer motivation, it's elevation. You have an elevated mindset. It stays the same over and over and over and over again. You become this maniacal individual that becomes ultra focused. You have no distractions, you have no things, and you just say, this is what's the most important thing to me. And you surround yourself with individuals that understand that don't judge you, and they help you achieve those goals.
Yeah. Is it fulfilling for them? Do they feel happiness after that? Do they see this sense of fulfillment? Or is it a constant battle and grind?
Well, here's the thing. What's happiness to me is not happiness to somebody else. So when they're in that state, there is no happiness until the very, very end, until the job is complete. You have moments in between that are joy and happy and so forth, but being happy and joyful and doing all that stuff doesn't come until the end result. You know, you've seen stuff on social media where, you know, when Kobe lost in the finals to Boston, and then they said, well, how are you going to train? He goes, I'm going to train until I pass out, or something. I'm going to do that. And everybody knows the famous quote when he's up 2-0 against the Orlando Magic, and everybody's like, why aren't you? The reporter's asking him, why are you smiling? Why aren't you doing this? He goes, aren't you happy? He goes, what's there to be happy about? Job not finished.
Job not finished.
Are you not happy, or you're only half happy, or?
Still to be happy about.
You're up 2-0.
Job's not finished. Job finished? No, I don't think so.
And you see so many individuals, they win one game and they're celebrating like they won the championship. They won the championship. And the difference is, a lot of individuals, when you talk about happiness, all right, and I talk about this mentality in my talks and in the books and so forth, some people don't have the ability to go from a happiness state back to a focus state.
Yeah.
They stay in that happiness state, and if you stay in that happiness state when you need to be focused, you're not going to play as well. So if you become really happy after the first win or the second win,
you become very rich after the first contract.
Yeah, you can be very complacent. You've seen teams up, you know, 2-0 and end up losing in in 6, losing game 7, 3-1. You know, you've seen all these things because they're already in this state of euphoria where they're like, oh, we've already won, and that changes the chemical makeup that's going on in the brain instead of staying focused on the task in hand. You watch Kobe, you watch MJ, you watch all these individuals. When that end goal is achieved, what do? They celebrate hard, but they never celebrate long.
Yeah.
Many times that I was out here with Kobe, it was after he won his championship, but he still brought me along here because he didn't want to stop working. He took a little time off, had to let the body heal, but he was like, I have to get back to work. We would do stuff here where he'd have his commitments with his Nike camps and his shoe things and all these different and do his endorsements. We'd go out to eat. We'd enjoy the nightlife. It'd be 3 o'clock in the morning, and we would just look at each other and go right to the gym.
Time to work.
Time to work.
I want to pick your brain in another aspect. Giannis, our guy, said after they got eliminated from the Heat, this famous quote that there is no failure in sports.
There's no failure in sports. You know, there's good days, bad days. Some days you are able to be successful, some days you're not.
Effectively saying that every failure is a lesson for you to become stronger and better and come back the other time and try to win. Do you agree with that take? Isn't fear of failure the biggest motivator
No, it's not the biggest motivator. It's not. All right, fear itself is a motivator. See, here, it's a lot of people say, you know, you learn a lot from failing. Yeah, but you know what? The best of the best, they learn just as much from winning.
Yeah.
Listen, you're not going to win the championship every single year. You're just not. But what Giannis found out is he's won one championship, correct? If I remember right.
2021.
Yeah. How difficult it is to win another one.
Yeah.
And you go into season in his team and with his expectations, which he's earned. He's earned those things.
He's a proven guy.
Yeah, he you know, from where his game was to where he is now. What happens is when you have the expectations of being one of the top teams, and every team he plays on now, the expectations are
championship caliber team, everything.
Every single time. So I look at it this way: is if you're projected and you're one of the best players, and at times he is the best player in the league, if you study MJ, if you study Kobe, if you study these individuals that have won multiple championships, you even listen to LeBron. All he kept saying is, the only thing I want now are championships. He doesn't care about the 50,000 points he's gonna have, whether he's played, you know, how many first team NBA or second team or wherever he has, or all this other stuff. Championships are all that matter. Now, I guarantee you ask Giannis that same question in another 3 years, when that window is closing, the answer will not be the same.
Yeah.
The answer will not be the same. It's the cliche that everybody likes to say. It's true, you cannot have winning without losing. You are going to fail, but you have to know why you failed. You have to understand why. You have to sit down, just like you dissect a play. Coaches dissect offenses, dissect defenses. You as an individual, if you're the best player on your team, you're the leader on your team, you have to dissect why you failed, why the team failed, and figure out ways not to make those things happen again. And that has to be the difference between being nice and being kind.
Final question. You work with so many guys on the most competitive level. You are a guy who is inspiring people, apart from the work as a trainer, the help with each athlete body. You are inspiring people. You helping people unlock their potential and stuff like that. Is it the same way of doing this thing with a professional athlete and then not an ordinary people?
It's exactly the same. Listen.
These are the same buttons?
It is. Greatness is inside all of us. Everything we have is already inside. But see, here's what is an interesting point that you said. You said unlocking that potential. Everybody wants to unlock that potential with a key. They think they can just grab a key and unlock the potential. It's not a key. Now, you know, you see people all the time. What's the key to success? Success doesn't have a key. We wish it was that easy. Success, unlocking that thing, it's a combination lock. Mm-hmm. It's literally a combination lock.
Like in a safe.
Yes. So you have to constantly crack the code. And here's the thing, most individuals already know the first two numbers, but trying to figure out that third number is so difficult. Because once you figure out the first and the second number, what you do is when you look at that dial doesn't turn as easy. The numbers are kind of rusty. You don't know where the line is. You don't know what's going on here. It's hard to turn, and that's when people start to quit and they start to give up, and they start the language that they speak to themselves starts to change. But what happens is when they figure out that third combination lock, they're like, I got it. But you know what happens as soon as you figure out that combination lock? While you're celebrating, that lock is being closed again, and the digits are being changed again. And now you have to go through it over again. Every single time you win a championship, you got to earn those numbers again. And people want to, they think the numbers are the same, and the numbers are not the same. Not only do you have to figure it out for yourself, you got to figure it out for your teammates, you got to figure it out for your coaches, you got to figure it out for all these different things. Because basketball is a team sport. No, you can have great games, But in order for have a championship season, it's going to require everyone. It's going to require everyone to do that. And it requires everyone to figure out what that combination is for that season. And the combination is different for the preseason, it's different for the regular season, it's different for the playoffs, it's different for the finals. Each stage becomes a little bit more, it becomes a little more difficult, it becomes a little more daunting, it becomes a little bit more obsessive, you become a little bit more maniacal. You need people around you that are selfish for you, that are going to allow you to do those things. But you know, as I've always said, if you think the price of winning is too high, wait till you get the bill for regret. And let me tell you, when you have a player who's as talented as some of these individuals, all right, when you leave the NBA or you leave professional football, you leave professional soccer, you leave tennis, you leave whatever sport it may be, and you only, well, I won't say only, and you only have one championship, there's a bill of regret with that when you know you could have had multiple. When you sit down and you're sitting down, you're in a room by yourself, you're thankful for the championship that you've won, but the ones that you didn't
hurt more. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Grover, it's been a pleasure and an honor having you here. Hope you spend a great time in Greece, and we're glad to have you back.
I always enjoy coming back here. This is a special place. I've come here with numerous of my athletes. Obviously, the history is unbelievable here. The first Olympics, and for my generation, everyone we studied Greek mythology. You studied all the gods. You had a connection with them. So when I come see here, all those things, it kind of takes me back to my childhood stuff of all, you know, hearing about all these individuals, and back then watching all the movies and so forth. So this is a historical, and also from a basketball standpoint, you know, this is, you know, you look at the European continents, there's a lot of history here, a lot.
Heritage.
A lot. Yeah.
And hopefully this guy behind Giannis will continue this legacy. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.